Hello, everybody. Welcome to another segment of Jesus is the Key to Reentry. You already know who I am, Militia Johnson, but I tell you, God is just so good and He's just doing some amazing and marvelous things, not just in the area of prison ministry, but also in the area of reentry. So as you come on, you know what you got to do. For those who's live, state your name and where you're located from. This is a live segment, and remember, we have a guest. So you are allowed to ask some questions. Led to ask whatever questions that you have for our guests on tonight. So come on in as you come in. State your name and where you're from. For those who will be listening later, we're glad that you tuned in, and you still can leave comments, and we'll make sure that if you have a question, that it will get answered. So before I bring my guests in on tonight, I want to talk about the Restoring the Broken workshop that's taking place in Dublin, Georgia on August the 23rd. August the 23rd from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. It is a free workshop. Your breakfast and lunch will be served to you, so you don't have to worry about it. It's going to be taken care of. We have three dynamic speakers that will be coming and three sessions along with a panel that will be taking place on that day. The first speaker, Prophetess Lantanisha Rogers, she will be talking to the church, not the building, but to the people, and why it is important for us to be there for those who are in prison and those returning citizens. Why is it important for the church to be involved? And then session two, we didn't just wake up like this. When I was younger, I didn't dream to be a prisoner when I grew up. I didn't want to be a person that was incarcerated, but it happened. So Dr. Rhonda Rogers is going to be sharing with us um, about mental health and about trauma. And guess what? It does happen in the church, regardless of what some people think that, there are mental health challenges as individuals that we are in the church. And I was talking to someone, I don't know if it was today or just a few minutes ago. We was talking about certain things that, I remember when my grandmother used to take me to the altar. Every Sunday I was at the altar. Every Sunday I was at the altar. Now, it didn't mean that God couldn't do it or God couldn't fix the situation, because I'm a firm believer of it. But a lot of times we want to cover it up. We want to cover up what's really going on in our lives. And there was a root issue, and there were some things that I had to deal with and to had to be uncovered. And then guess what? Then let's get God. Let's talk about him and let him continue to heal me and to heal wounds those wounds that I had that need to be healed. And then the third session is how to support men in recovery. We have Elder Patrick Wilson from New Birth Ministries in Tyndall, Georgia, who will be sharing why it is important to support men in recovery. It's important to help women in recovery as well. So we're not um, just talking about men, but just people that's in recovery. So we're pleased for that. I will be having some district attorneys that will be present. One of my sentencing judges will be there, not the last one, but one throughout my many times of going, getting incarcerated. But I'm just so excited of what God is doing and how we're going to help equip the church on what effective prison and reentry ministry is. It's not just going to the jails, it's not just going to the prisons, but it's being there for those who are or seem to be forgotten. Hi, Muriel. Thank you for joining us on tonight. So let me go ahead and stop talking and bring my guest in, Mr. Lester Young from Path to Redemption. I'm telling you, I've been following him on Facebook. I've been following him on LinkedIn, and I believe that he has something to share with you on tonight. I'm gonna ask him some questions, but of course, God is going to lead and He's going to take control of it. So whatever happens is what's going to happen on tonight. Excuse me, thought I put my phone on do not disturb. Okay, so I'm sorry. So let me go ahead and bring him in. And here is, oh, he left me. What happened to him? He's coming back. Okay, he kind of stepped out, but I see him coming back in. Here he is, Mr. Lester Young. Thank you. How are you?
I am blessed. I am blessed, and I'm grateful to have another opportunity at life and to be able to share what God has allowed you and I to experience in our incarceration, to inspire audiences and also others to really understand the impact of work that we need to do in this work.
Awesome. Another chance at life. Okay, I'm gonna ask you this beginning question, and then however it leads is however.
Okay.
But can you start by telling our listeners a little bit about who you are and what led you to the creation of Path to Redemption?
Okay. As you said, my name is Lester Young. I'm a formerly incarcerated person, someone who served a total of 22 years and 5 months in the South Carolina prison system. And during that, I would say, during that time of my incarceration, I remember entering into that prison system feeling dejected, hopeless, lost, trying to find how could I find redemption in prison. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, I didn't see anything at that time. Only thing I saw inside of the prison were people pulling me to the lifestyle that I was already sentenced to life for in prison. So I remember just sitting in my prison cell one night, a couple years into my incarceration. And I remember praying to God, asking Him to guide me to the direction where He needed me to be. And I remember asking God to forgive me, going through that whole phase of repenting to God. And God just put me on this path, and He said, "I've forgiven you, but you have to seek forgiveness for those you have harmed. And by seeking forgiveness for those you have harmed, I began that period of self discovery, and in that self discovery, this is where I found my own path of redemption. So I tell a lot of people, path of redemption was born inside of the prison. When I started to ask God for direction, He guided my steps to create my own path of redemption.
Wow. You said you was sentenced to 22 years. Did you serve that?
No, I was sentenced to life. I was sentenced to life in prison at 19. I was given a life
Oh,
sentence for murder at 19 years old. And by the grace of God, I had a 3% chance of, I shouldn't be sitting here if it was up to man, right?
yeah.
But I had a 3% chance of walking out of prison. But because I found my path to redemption in prison, for 22 years, I labored. I did what God called me to do inside of that prison. And my first time I went up for parole, I was denied parole. But my second time, God favored me. He blessed me to walk out of that door after 22 years and 5 months, which was in South Carolina prison system, which is a very rare thing that a person released at that early of their sentence.
Wow. So 22 years and 5 months is a scripture in the Bible that talks about occupy till he comes. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what you was doing. You said, okay, God, I'm believing in you, but let me just find the path that you have for me and let's kind of go from there. So 19. So did you graduate from high school at that time? Was you in college? What was
No,
19?
I was actually a high school dropout when I entered into prison at 19 years old. I may have been reading at a seventh grade level of education. I was a high school dropout. Hate reading books. Hated everything about it. Only lifestyle that I really found joy in at that time was unfortunately selling drugs and just engaging in just wayward behavior as a teenager. So I was totally a person that hated school. But inside of prison, I was blessed to find a love for reading, and from finding that love for reading, that's when I started aspiring to get my GED, and eventually got my GED. And then from there, I started building my own personal path to redemption inside of prison.
So what sparked your interest to go ahead and get your GED? Was it somebody talked to you, or is it just say, look, I got time to do, so let me go ahead and do it? You
No, it
know,
was not just time, because you got a life sentence and you don't see the value of education when you're serving a life sentence in prison. But
right?
it was, once I want to step back for a minute just to share like the whole message here is that what really inspired me to want better for my life is when I made amends with my victim spirit inside of my prison cell, because I was sitting in prison with this heavy weight of guilt of unaliving someone over a drug dispute. And here it is, I'm trying to find this. And God says that I have forgiven you. Got to seek the forgiveness of your victim. And this is for my third year into my incarceration, was I finally found the courage to ask my victim to forgive me, which his spirit asked, speaking to his spirit to forgive me. And in that, I remember making a promise that I will live my life to honor your life to the best, to the rest of my life. So when I made that promise, that began to open up to me to want better for my life. And getting a GED was just me testing myself, really to push myself. when all of my homeboys who were serving life, they mocked me, they laughed at me, like, why do you want to get a GED or high school diploma when the chances are you would never get out of prison, you would never be able to use it. But it was about me pushing myself to believe that it's something I could do. And most importantly, too, I wanted to show my father that I made some steps to getting something that he always wanted me to do.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, so you got your GED.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that means your mindset is changing.
Yeah.
Okay, from the time you get so what's happening? Okay, let's talk about maybe your first couple of years in prison. Did
Mm-hmm.
you get that at the beginning, or was that like years
I,
past?
I was I was just I was blessed, Melissa. I was blessed by God. I tell people God favored me and covered me my entire time of my incarceration.
Okay,
I mean, like as soon as I walked into the prison, the guy that I used to sell drugs to in prison was the guy that prevented me from even bringing harm to myself. When I was in prison thinking about suicide, it was the guy that I sold drugs to in the streets was my cellmate that said, "Hey, nah, you ain't gonna do that, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like this is something you got to do. These are the books you need to read." I wish I could find that guy to this day to thank him because he saw here it is. I was a drug dealer that fed him that poison and
mm,
he turned around and say, "Hey, I see what you're doing and I know that feeling. I want to speak life into you that you don't think about what I know you're thinking about, and that's to take your life in prison." Right. So he prevented that from happening. And as I continue to walk, that was at the county jail level, right? That's before I even got sentenced. And God just kept putting people, the right people in my path. When I got to prison, one of the prison chaplains was like, "Hey, what is your goal, man? What do you want to do while you're here?" And I was like, "Man, I don't want to do nothing. I got a life sentence, chaplain, you know." And he was like, "Nah, there's potential in this opportunity." And I pushed back on him because I didn't believe in God. I hated God. I not hated God, but I didn't want a
right,
relationship with God at the time
right,
because I prayed while I was in the county and God didn't save me. So I was like, "Man, me and you ain't on good terms right now, God."
right.
But I came to understand that the reason why God did not grant me my prayer to get out completely free of the charge because He know my heart wasn't right.
That's right.
My heart was not right. I know I already didn't had in my heart that I was going to get out and do the same thing, but I was praying this prayer and God knew my heart. So He allowed me to get that life sentence to be able to get my heart right. But this prison chaplain was the one that tested me and pushed me to think outside the box. When he gave me a book called As a Man Thinketh, So Is He by James Allen. And
Mm,
he asked me, what are my goals? And I told him I don't have any goals. And he said, by the time next week come, you need to be thinking about what are some goals that you want for your life. And that began that me doing that introspection and started doing some deep reflection on what type of person I wanted to be inside of prison.
okay. So since Path to Redemption started while you was incarcerated,
Mm-hmm.
what inspired the name and the mission? What was it that really inspired it?
It was that going back again, it was that night in my cell when I felt broken and I realized that I needed redemption. I needed forgiveness because to sit in prison for unaliving someone it's a heavy it's something that sits in you it sits in your spirit. And
Yes.
if you don't seek repentance, you'll either run to this lifestyle, find drugs and alcohol to numb it, or you're
Mhm.
going to run to finding something that's going to give you a peace that will cleanse your soul. And that's what I need. I needed something to like give me that. And the prison officials, they didn't have that thing to give me. They didn't know how to help a person who's been in prison at the age of 19, unaliving someone, and got to deal with that when the lights go off in the prison cell. The guilt and the shame comes into your spirit and it sits there. I was tired of feeling like that. And that's when I said redemption. I know the definition of redemption, but I said I need to find my path, not your path, because all of us have our own individual path to redemption. But my path to redemption was about me making peace with my victims, making peace with the younger version of Lester, finding his purpose, understanding the power of his gift, understanding the power of a vision. And no matter what the odds were against me in prison, that I was going to walk this out no matter what. If I had to leave all my friends behind, which I did, I had to leave a lot of my friends because they thought I was crazy. They was like, "Oh man, you started to trip in prison because now you're reading the book. You're not smoking weed. You're not drinking. You're not engaging in the perverted behavior. You're different. Something's wrong, man. Prison done messed you up, but prison didn't mess me up. I was searching for my path to redemption,
Come
which I
on now.
found it."
Yes, I love it. I love it. I have a friend that's currently incarcerated on a life sentence as well. And
Mhm.
he was 19.
Yeah.
He was 19 at the time. I think maybe right now he's 22, 23 years.
Mhm.
And he was just saying, I can't give up. He
Mm-mm.
said, I can't give up, and I'm not going to let my mind just be just go to waste while it's here.
No.
So he said, I read as much as I can. I try to stay as much as he said, I have to keep my mind sharp. You
Yeah.
know, he said, there's a lot of things that I don't know out there, but I know that I'm coming out. He said, I
Mhm.
know God got a plan for me and he has a purpose, even though I messed up, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Even though we messed up, like I'm a firm believer, I was supposed to be in prison. I
Yeah.
was supposed to did because of what I did, but God used that. God
Mhm.
used that. So now we're on our path to redemption. Now we're out. Okay. After
Mhm.
serving 22 years. So
Mhm.
let's talk about how that life sentence got overturned
Yeah.
to 22 years.
I would say, going back again to my after me having that epiphany and making reconciliation with my victim, for the remainder of my release from prison, I started figuring it out. I started figuring it out. Like I remember sitting, it was 1996 at this time, it was a major riot in one of the prisons. And I was fasting, I was praying, I was doing. And you ever came to that point where you feel that you were not growing spiritually?
Oh, yes.
My heart was heavy with some other stuff, sister. I'm just being honest. I had a heavy heart with some stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I remember, and one of the heaviness in this heart was I asked God to forgive me. I sought forgiveness from the person I unalive, but
Mm-hmm.
I was holding something about the person who was not truthful on the stand about the charge. Like my
Mm-hmm.
one of my best friends, who I felt like he should have told the truth, that crime that I was charged for was not me having a malicious ill will towards this person. I came to protect my best friend who was being robbed at this time, and
Mm-hmm.
he testified and he didn't tell the truth.
Mm.
He saved himself and didn't save me. And because of my loyalty to the code, I sat in prison and I allowed a lot of people to lie and didn't tell the truth about what happened, right? And my father didn't like it. He knew the truth was not being spoken, but I sat and my 19-year-old arrogant, conceited, but that's what I accepted. So in 96, I had a heart full of rancor towards this person. And something said, write a letter and tell this person you have forgiven them, and you begin to feel growth. So I'm like, dang God, but I wrote this man, one of my best friends, grew up with him. I wrote him a letter and I said, man, I forgive you. I'm no longer holding resentment towards you for what you did not do. You should have told the truth and you chose not to. Here I'm at serving a life sentence, but I forgive you.
Mm.
I wrote that letter, and weeks later, I got a letter back from him. He apologized, and the guilt that he feels from that situation ate him alive. Messed him up a lot of ways. But I said, brother, I forgive you. I said, we may not be the best of friends anymore, but I forgive you. If I see you today or tomorrow, I will hug you. I will shake your hand, but we would not be as we were once before. And once I did that, again,
Yes.
it's like
Yes.
I found relief in that forgiveness. And then from there, I started journaling. The power of journaling. I tell people all the time, journaling allowed me to unlock my own path, helped me to discover what these paths are, the steps to my redemption. And I remember another show, Oprah Winfrey was doing a show on gratitudes and journals. I picked it up from watching Oprah. And
Mm-hmm.
she says that when you're feeling hopeless and you're in this dark place, one of the most powerful multipliers of your blessing is to write down daily things that you're full of gratitude, you're grateful for. So I
Yes.
remember I ran to the prison canteen and got this journal, and I started that next day writing down every morning 5 things that I was grateful for. That
Mm.
again, my steps were being ordered in the right direction. And in that, I started writing what I call my 5-stage incarceration framework. The book that I published, one of my first books I published when I got out of prison, called The 5-Stage Incarceration, was a consistent journaling of me discovering who Lester Young was and
Mm-hmm.
where did Lester Young fall off at. Yeah, so I always tell people I created a timeline, and my timeline goes back to 16 years old. That's when my behavior started shifting into criminal behavior. What happened at 16, Lester? I lost my mother. My mother died at 16 years old. Came home one afternoon from school. My mom asked me to wash the dishes. I was like, nah, I'm not going to wash the dishes. I'm going to go and play football. When I come back, I'll wash the dishes, not realizing how sick my mother was. She was concealing her sickness. Went to bed that night. My dad came home. I got my butt tore up by my dad for being disrespectful. Went to bed upset with my mother. Got up the next morning. My dad said, "Would you stay home with your sister, your mother, until I come back and take her to the hospital to a doctor's appointment?" I was like, "Dad, I got to go to school." Blah blah blah. So my oldest sister ended up staying. I left and went to school. Didn't go in the bedroom and kiss my mom, which we always do every morning. I did not, because my pride, my little 16-year-old pride and ego was like, "Mom, you need to come and apologize to me." But she didn't, because I didn't know. But I got to school 3 hours later and found out that my mother passed away in her sleep when me and my two other sisters left to go to school. So 16 is where that timeline where I shifted, because right after that, as soon as I turned 17, 2 weeks after I turned 17, I got my first drug possession of crack cocaine charge, right? So all of these things right here was just me just struggling with. So that's where the journaling started. And when I started journaling, I started discovering my 5 stages of incarceration. The first one was self-denial. Lester, what are the areas of the now that you're struggling with? And that's when I did that timeline. I discovered that a lot of my pain was fueled from the loss of my mother, not making amends. And then my anger was tied to that core thing, right? And then that victimization. So by that, man, since that's why I started, the book is here. I wrote this book in prison, taught it for almost 18 years in prison to men, over 1,000 plus men in prison, this particular book. And when I finally came home, I said, I need to now write this book, and I'm going to continue to walk my journey. I'm going to be a person that becomes an advocate, a voice, an example of what redemption looks like after incarceration.
All right. Amen. The 5 stages of incarceration is the name of your book, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
5 days.
All right. So you're out. All
Yeah.
right. So, you on your path. And so what does day one look like? Or maybe that first, and then let's talk about that first year. Was you, as you still writing books like you was when you was incarcerated?
Yeah. I can't. One of the prison chaplains, he inspired me. He was a great mentor to me for many years. Like my last 9 years in prison, I was at a prison called Correctional Institution. Prison chaplain by the name of Gerald Patoka was a guy that really just poured into me, man. He was a guy that understood what it looks like to mentor people, disciples. He was always believing in building disciples to carry on that power of 12. What does the power of 12 look like? And he pulled me in under his wing, and he started mentoring me. And he's like, "Hey, I want you to work in the prison chaplain, and I want you to do all of the classes." Started teaching classes. He said, "I want you to teach class. I want you to speak everything," not knowing that he and God was preparing me for this. So my first day out of prison, we already had plans on documenting my journey. And I knew that once I got out of prison, I was going to document my journey to be able to share my experience with other men who didn't have the opportunity to see it from a bird's eye lens of what reentry looks like. You know what I mean? So my first couple of weeks out of prison was challenging, sis. It was a very challenging situation for me because I wasn't prepared for the culture shock. Remind you, I went to prison at 19. I came when I was 41 years old. The world changed. I struggled with the power of decisions and choices.
Yeah.
Like I remember going into Popeye's Chicken. My mentor took me to Popeye's Chicken, and I was in there and I had a panic attack right there at the soda machine, right? Because the soda machine has I just wanted a Coke, bro. I didn't realize that Coca-Cola at this time had over 20 different flavors, and all of it was about a push button. Thinking about a man getting out of prison after 22 years.
Yeah.
It freaked me out. So that was the biggest thing for me. My first couple of months out of prison was acclimating and dealing with the emotional challenge, and I struggled with depression, something I didn't realize I struggled with when I got out of prison. Survival guilt was another one. Like I don't deserve to be here. Like I left a lot of my friends in prison. I left people who became my family in prison. So I struggled with the survival guilt. I struggled with depression because being rejected for a job after prison because no one told me when you get out of prison that there's this thing called a felony conviction denies you job opportunities. I wasn't aware of that. I just thought that because the parole board said you have to get a job. So I'm thinking, okay, it's going to be easy for me to get a job. Not realizing that you putting in 25, 30 applications a day or a week and you're getting denied all of them. So now you're dealing with depression, the rejection. You wasn't prepared for that. So now I'm going to bed at 10 o'clock at night like I'm still in prison until one of my counselors asked me, like, what is your routine? And I told her my routine, and she says, yo, that's a sign of depression. I would shut my door like I'm still in the prison cell. I was still on that prison routine time. So I struggled a lot with depression when I first got out of prison, and just the social adapting to people was a big challenge for me.
Yeah. Yeah. When I came home, it was during COVID. So it was already like the anxiety, and now I'm out here with people with masks, even though we had the mask on there, but it was a different thing. And I can relate. I went to Walmart and just going to look for Dove soap, like, and there's like 30 different types of Dove soap now. Like, okay, like we had Dove, we had
Tone.
Yep, and leave it 2000, what I'm saying? Or Irish Spring or whatever. So, here you go, coming out to, and I'm like,
right, toothpaste. You didn't have too many brands. You go in the line, it's 1,000 brands of toothpaste. You get overwhelmed with choices. So that was a big thing.
Yeah, like and I'm talking about candy. Like what happened to our basic candy? Yeah. So now we got all this. So that was so overwhelming. Yeah. For me. So overwhelming. But let me ask you, what do you feel like is the people coming home, based off your experience, what is the needs? How can people maybe support people that's just coming home? Because you talked about depression. You talked about, some of us do have that survival guilt because I left a lot of good people behind,
I appreciate that question because I just had a conversation with a friend of mine, just did like 21 years in prison. I've been home now 10 years, right? And and he came home and he's all excited, and I was just like sharing with him my experience, and I was like, brother, like I think that any person who's getting out of prison who have done substantial amount of time, their first couple of weeks, or for at least for the first 30 days, should be about decompression.
Explain that.
Decompression is that they just need to not be overwhelmed with choices. They need to slowly reintegrate back into life, like slowly interact like with family. Like take your time. Don't try to make up for what you lost. Don't come home and be a savior. Like you need time to decompress from the trauma, from the isolation, from the emotional suppression that you experienced while you was in prison. You need time. And I think that anyone who's working in reentry, we need to like reassess and say, instead of again getting people after prison to acclimate into workforce immediately, give them a time to reacclimate to their emotions, like create a safe space for them to decompress their emotions. I share this and I tell people this, is that in prison, for me to survive 22 years in prison, I had to intentionally remove that wire from my emotions and did not feel. I could not feel, like, because feeling in prison is vulnerability. Feeling in prison, you won't be able to endure the silence of incarceration, the absence of family. It's almost like you died and your family died, and while you're in prison, even though they're there, but it's almost like it feels like someone has died. Because you're gone, right? So now emotionally, you struggling to try to like suppress in order for you to survive. If I think about missing my family too much, I'm going to get too emotional, and it's going to affect how I move in prison. So we unconsciously, we slowly detach our emotions. We stop feeling in prison in order to survive. So now here you are out here in the world after your incarceration. You just don't start feeling right as soon as you walk out of prison. You have to learn how to reconnect your emotional wire back to begin to feel, to be able to understand, to process a lot of, and I'll speak for me, for men, right? The men that I mentor and work with, this is the biggest thing, is that they come home and they automatically think that they're okay I say this: you cannot say that no one walks in the rain and don't get wet.
Mm-hmm.
If even if you have a rain jacket on, it's going to get wet. You have an umbrella, you're going to get wet.
That's
So I
right.
use that equation to say that anyone who's been in prison, rather than 1 year, 2 years, 20 years, you got wet by prison, by the
Mm-hmm.
structure of prison. Prison isn't set up to be therapeutic and rehabilitative. It's punitive. It's controlling. So now you come home after a period of time. You done been living, walking in a white line or uniforms, only 3 uniforms, a certain kind of bar. So you come home and you think you're gonna be normal right after that. Nah,
Oh, heck no. Mm-mm.
so that's the answer to your question. I would say that anyone who's working with people who are returning from prison, they have to understand, like, we have to create a safe space for individual to decompress from the trauma of incarceration, to help them understand what cognitive behavior is, helping them reconnect that emotional wire, slowly going into a grocery store and understanding what is a self-serve line looks like.
Yeah.
And when that red light shows up, you don't need to run out of that store, even though you paid something. You about to freak out, right? So
Mm-hmm.
teaching slowly doing that, even when it comes to jobs, like a person shouldn't get a full-time job as soon as they get out of prison. I believe why? Because you're socially awkward. You have not worked around people for that amount of time. There's certain things in the workspace that you don't even know. When you're talking about, like, most people get out and get in warehouse jobs and factory jobs, a lot of it is technology. If you don't know what technology is in that workspace, it's gonna be overwhelming. You're gonna have a panic attack on the job. You're gonna find some way to fight against that emotion. And what most people are doing, I pause here, is that when they feel this emotion, they revert back to old ways.
Yeah.
They quit the job. They go back and get high. They go back on front. They go around their old friends because that's comfortable to them. What they want? They want a different lifestyle, but it's hard, and no one's walking them through that emotional roller coaster of life after incarceration.
So who are those people that walk with them? Because a lot of times when they come home, for those who have support, they have their families, and their
Yeah,
families just don't know. I remember
no.
um, me coming home, and my sister. I was living with my sister at the time, and I was always talking to ladies that I was incarcerated with,
Mhm,
whether they came out, I was still emailing them, and
mhm,
she was like, "You act like they're your family," and I
mhm,
said, "They are. Do you
yeah,
realize I just spent 12 years
mhm.
with
It's your
them?" And so I didn't. That was what I went back to. Is
family.
the girls that I was comfortable with. How are
Mhm.
you dealing with this? What kind of job do you have? Because my family couldn't help me at the time.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So that's another reason. One of the things that I do in my organization, I do webinars where I say how to support your loved one after incarceration. I see you see it all the time, and some of your audience will see this as well. Where people come home from prison, they have done made it this big deal. Where my son has done 20 years and he's going to surprise his moms, and it's going to be this big party. Everybody's going to celebrate. My son's finally home, and they celebrate, but they don't tell the backstory that that family and that son who just came home from prison, there's no connection,
Mm-mm.
especially if you have not. And my family came to see me my entire time in prison, but even when I came home, think about this. You familiar with this? Sitting in the visitation room, whenever every month or every other month your family come to see you, you only have 3 hours in the visitation room at full tops. The conversation you have in that visitation is not even real conversation. I call it surface conversation. Y'all not having, your family don't know who you was, done that person who done 12 years. You and them became a completely different person. They still seeing you as the person who they remember you are.
Say it now. That's right.
That's how they see. They didn't know the work that you did to be
Mm-hmm.
who you are today. They didn't see that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
when they come on this table, for me, I remember me sitting down and trying to articulate to my father that I've changed. It wasn't a conversation they wanted to have because they didn't know how to have the conversation. They still saw me as a 19-year-old drug dealer, blah, blah, blah. They still didn't see this man who was evolving. My father didn't see who I really evolved into becoming until he came to my parole hearing. When he came to that parole hearing, he heard me present myself. He walked out of there and said, "Son, you have done become a man." He said, "You are not that teenage boy that I thought you were. You
Yeah. Yeah.
You that guy. Like I didn't know this and it happened to you. So families don't know what happened to us in our transformation in prison. And they don't validate, they don't believe it's there. They just think it's a jail thing. So they don't
Mhm.
know how to communicate and effectively connect with us. My family didn't know how to connect with me. I didn't know how to connect with my family. My dad asked me this. He's like, son, why is it that you can't sit down no more than 30 minutes when me and you talking? And I thought about it months later. I was like, the reason why I couldn't sit down because I didn't know how to have a conversation with you outside of the hours that we spend in the visitation room.
Mm.
I didn't know.
Mm.
I didn't know. My phone call is only 15 minutes, right?
Mhm.
So even if I'm talking, I don't, after 15 minutes, I'm lost. I don't know what to say after 15 minutes. I know to go down, I know to go in the cell and talk to my homeboy. We can go talk for a whole hour about
Yeah.
whatever it is. But I
Yeah.
didn't know how to have a conversation after 15 minutes.
Wow. Look at here. Jessica saying, I remember also several months after I got out doing 5.5 years breaking down and actually saying that it was easier in prison.
Facts.
That it
That's
was
real.
in prison.
That's a real thing, and we all struggle with it. But for women, I think that, and this is sad, but I think for women, you all struggle with the shame of it because you're mothers. You have to connect back with food. Men, when we walk out of prison, I don't never hear a man say, "I'm going to get out here and go and connect with my kids." Nah, like I'm going to go see them, but and that's it. But for a mother, I got to find a place to live. I got to get a job to be able to get a house. And I got to get my kids back. Blah blah blah. I got to rebuild that part because that's who you are,
Mhm.
right? So yeah, and this is going back again too. I think that in this reentry space, we have to create these safe space for men and women to be able to decompress outside of family. And this is what those with lived experience, we bring so much credibility to this work in reentry. And I'm so glad to see in these last 10 years since I've been home, is people are now starting to give people with that lived experience the credit that they deserve.
Yes.
You should not be talking about prison reentry and you don't have no one on your board that is formerly incarcerated. You should
Come
not.
on.
You should be paying these people who are on your board who are formerly incarcerated because of their lived experience. Because
Mhm.
you can walk a woman in her reentry path way better and way different than a woman or a man who never walked into a prison. They couldn't tell you what it felt like to go to Walmart and you overwhelmed with trying to select what Dove soap you get. Or when you go into a grocery store, you're looking for the pink salmon, the oyster, you're looking for the cup soups, you're looking for a Tupperware bowl because for 12 years you ate out of a plastic bowl. So when this woman or this man going into that grocery store, they that's what they're gonna look for,
Right.
right? So yeah,
And that's so true. I actually saw a guy and I knew it. I knew he had just come out because I'm
we
looking
know,
at what he's getting, you
we
know.
know,
You
we know, sis, we know. Like you can
know?
look at a dude or a woman, and you be like, oh, they've been in prison, how they walk, how they move, you
Yeah.
know. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, you in the grocery store, you getting a bunch of chips. You think you at canteen day, bro?
Yeah, it's funny, but it's real life. They don't, it's real. This was how we lived. Like, oh my God. And you went back to that trauma of
Yeah,
being incarcerated.
trauma.
I really believe that, and because I know I experienced it. I still have a therapist. I had a therapist from the time I came out to
Yeah.
now because I had to navigate being back reunited in society after 12 years. After
Mhm.
12 years. And I know Robert can talk about it. He's there as well. And now, just being able to get our minds right,
Mhm. Mhm.
being able to get our minds right. But I want to take you to a subject that's very dear to my heart, and the reason why I do what I do, and that's called the church.
Mhm.
That's the faith leaders. And we talked about it briefly before we started, but I
Mhm.
want to ask you, what role should the church and the faith-based communities play in the part in helping returning citizens?
Going back again, I believe that any faith-based organization, if they don't have or appoint a formerly incarcerated person with that lived experience to restructure their outreach, then I think they're doing it wrong. That's just
Mm,
me.
mm,
Because if you and I'm saying if you have someone on your ministry that has already been incarcerated, that's different. But if you look at your board and you say that, man, there's nobody in here that is formerly incarcerated that has rebuilt their life inside and outside of prison, then we doing something wrong because we need to center their voices. If we say we're going to serve them, we need to know them.
come
And
on
I'm
now.
not just talking about saying, hey, I'm going to go in and teach you about Jesus or whatever that religion is. We'll be talking about a church. You don't need to be just going to teach about religion, because these guys and women, they know about Jesus in prison, right? They understand what that is. But as I mentioned to you, I'm a firm believer that before I can pour into a vessel, I need to help that vessel repair from the trauma and the harm that has happened to that vessel. We can pour religion into that broken vessel, meaning the men or the woman's temple, but it will seep out of their body because of the trauma, and we're not helping them to identify with that. Like I tell a lot of guys that I used to facilitate these classes on, like the 5 Stages of Incarceration, my book, I said that one of the things that I've seen that most people use religion, it helps them justify their wrong, and they don't have to face that person in the mirror. Right. Like, oh, God is taking care of that situation. I don't have to. So again, any faith organization, one, center the voices of those who've been directly impacted. Have someone there, trust them to be able to lead that congregation, lead the prison ministry, allow them to not live in shame with their lived experience, but allow them to be in a safe space where they can tell you what they experience in prison, outside of prison. And in that, you use your text, your religious text, to formulate a program based upon that. Don't go in there assuming that you've done read every verse out of these Bible religious books and you figured it out. No, we all have unique approaches to reentry. And I think, as I said, respectfully to any religious organization, you have to center the voices of those who've been directly impacted before you go into these systems.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement with that, because I've said it ever since I was a child, before I even got incarcerated. Don't tell me something if you ain't experienced it.
No, you can't.
You know, how you gonna tell me how to maintain single if you got a husband, you know, and or fight for anything, you know. I'm somewhere else. But you know, I need you to tell me things that you've experienced and how you've made it through. Yeah. And that's why this live experience is so important. And and from what I heard today, we went to a Georgia Consumer Mental Health Conference, and how they talk about peer support in Georgia is strong.
Yeah, it is. It is.
It's strong.
It is. And even with this too, sis, I'm a firm believer again, is that peer support specialists and forensic peer-to-peer specialists for those in recovery, and forensic peers, those who've been incarcerated, I think it's giving people, they're sending the voices of those who are directly impacted, but I still think that we need to do the work. And what I mean by the work, we still as individuals, we still gotta be figuring out and understanding and uprooting our own trauma. Because it's easy when I'm a peer specialist, I'm working with someone who's been in prison or in recovery, we can do what is called trauma bonding. I can now stop bonding with you based upon the trauma, and we both stuck in a situation. Only difference is that I'm no longer incarcerated. I have a job that pays the bill, but then I'm still stuck in my own trauma. And eventually you'll find people who are stuck in that form of trauma may have a relapse, right? Or different, it may come out in different forms of fashion. So I just think that what we're doing in the peer support specialist space now is great. But like, it's important to be providing that professional development for these individuals. I'm seeing a lot of organizations nationally that are hiring formerly incarcerated people, but they're not investing in their personal development.
That's right.
They're not. So like, one of the things that I do too, I do a training called Lead with Emotional Intelligence. I do a 3 months, 6 months. I work with organizations that have formerly incarcerated people. We focus on leadership, but we also focus on helping them understand what is emotional intelligence. Think about a man or woman just got out of prison and now they're a peer. They need to understand what their emotional triggers are. How many people can tell you what their emotional triggers are? How many people can tell you after incarceration they've learned how to regulate their emotions? You know, they understand what emotional intelligence is. So that's one of the things that I've been doing for the last 6 months now, is working with organizations to continue to pour into our brothers and sisters who are taking up this space around peer support specialists. We got to educate them. We got to continue to not just give them a certification, but it has to be an ongoing process, because I believe that reentry is not a 100-yard dash, a 400-yard relay. It is a marathon. It's not something, because I've been out 10 years and I still find myself fumbling with the words, say, hey, I'm going to my room. Sometimes I say, when I'm about to go to my cell. Like, I lived there for 22 years. It's still in me. It's still in my skin. I've
Mm.
been home 11 years and I've done all of the, I'm still doing work on myself, but it's still in my, it's still here. The lingo, the language is still there.
Do you think? Oh, let me see what a couple of people are saying here. What Jessica saying is just checking the box. Jesus said to do it, so I'm going to do it. Most churches forget that we are supposed to do everything like we are doing it for God,
Yeah.
which means getting the best people to coordinate the program, the
Mm-hmm.
best people who those who have lived through it become
Mm-hmm.
have overcome it. Anger
Mm-hmm.
have overcome it, and that's
Mm-hmm.
true. That is so
Mm-hmm.
true, Jess.
Mm-hmm.
Robert said, got to have some connected that actually have the live experience, whether it's a board member, advisor, or whatever capacity, but it must have one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Paulina, God sheds light, he lights your path. And that is so true. I do. And what you said that was so I wonder how long, because you said you've been dealing with it for 10, 11 years now.
Yeah, 10
Because
years. It's
I find myself, a little bit, I'll see it. I still um have I have my photo album
mm-hmm.
because I it's a reminder to me. I still have my prison ID as a reminder of a place that I don't want to go back to.
Agreed.
But I still find myself um just certain things that I had in
Mm-hmm.
prison, and I still kind of have it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had it for so long.
Yeah.
So how long do I have to still have a part of that prison attached to me? And it probably don't help none that I work in the prison either. You know what I'm saying? So
I think that it's a difference. It's like having, like, going back again to emotional intelligence is a self-awareness. I'm aware of it now. A lot of people are not aware of the remnants of their incarceration. Because I'm aware of my triggers, like I certain things I'm able to articulate it more. And when I say it's in my skin, but it doesn't own me anymore.
okay,
It doesn't hijack who I am no more.
okay.
I identify with. But some people, it's in their skin and it hijacks them consistently. It hijacks their emotions, hijacks everything about them because they have a lack of emotional intelligence. They lack the awareness. They don't know because we're not having these conversations about it's in you. 22 years, I've been home 10 years, 11 years, but I still struggle with like communication, effective communication with certain things, connection, emotional connection, having a level of empathy. I have empathy for certain things, but like my sisters told me, say, hey man, like we just lost both. My dad just recently passed away. And it was like, why are you acting like he didn't die? I was like, I said, I miss my dad. It was like, why everybody else crying and you ain't crying? I said, I don't know. That's what I did when I was in prison. Crying for me, it's like I lost my father, my only parent that was living. He did after me getting out of prison 5 years ago. He transitioned. Anniversaries, thinking I get a little sad, but I have a coping mechanism that happened that I shut down and I push it out of the way. So that's what I mean. I'm aware of it, right? But it's something that is still there. And it's part of it now has become my survival skill set. I survive like that. It's not like, people, when you lose a parent, you lose someone, you're gonna have a lot of remorse, which I do have. I do cry, but not in the capacity which some people think I should or show it. Like when my father passed away, I was like, okay, what do we need to do? Just in a mold. It was just something that I learned in prison. And it worked to my advantage in some places and it doesn't in some places. So when I say, going back again to the question about which a person should do to help someone get out of prison, this is what I mean. You don't need a job when you get out of prison the first 30 days. If you can, you should work part-time, maybe a couple hours out of the day. It should not be a full-time job because you have to like recalibrate yourself back into a world that you have been out of for so long. And that's emotions. Like this is another thing too, like women who have dated men in prison, they reach out to me and they say, hey, my husband is not intimate. He's not affectionate. He doesn't connect. He doesn't communicate, as we was talking about on how he used to talk to me in prison all the time. He's home now. He don't know how to communicate because in prison he had a phone. That's it. But face to face, he don't know how to have a face to face conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Why isn't my husband who just got out of prison not able to take on responsibility in the house? Because he don't know. He went to prison when he did with 18, 19 years old. When you met him, he was in his 30s or his 40s. Y'all fell in love while y'all was in prison or when he got out of prison, but he don't know how to manage a household. It was great giving advice when you're on the phone, but now you're out in the real world. How do you manage a household? You can't. So again, even for women who are in relationship with men, I would say, like, don't even give that man the role and say, hey, you the man now, you the man of the house, take on the risk. No, that's overwhelming for a man. Just getting out of prison is too overwhelming for him. He need, and our ego is not going to allow it, but you need to let your woman lead you until you adjust to your situation. You can't do everything. Even when it comes down to your pay scale, your wife may make more money than you, and you're going to feel some kind of way. You over here making $13, so you making me $25, $28 an hour, right? And you mad, and now that creates a conflict in the household, right? Because you don't understand that you've been gone for 10 years. That's why she make, you see where I'm coming from? So all of these different dynamics have to be addressed. And when I say it's in you, it comes out in different forms. It comes out in relationships. It comes out with connection with your children. It comes out when you go into restaurants and you got to sit with your back a certain way in a restaurant. When I go in a restaurant, depending upon where I'm at, I have to like make sure I have an exit plan. I got to check and see, like, do I have something to protect myself if someone's violating me? All of these various things, like I'm sitting in the mess hall. So 10 years, 11 years I've been home, it's still in me. I still got to process it. But the self-awareness, when it comes up, I can communicate it a little differently. Some people don't know how to communicate it.
There need to be a course for the families, you know,
Absolutely.
because they, yes, they did the time with you, but now they got to be out here with you because, and they thinking something wrong, or you got an attitude with them, or you got a problem with them, and that's not it. It's just,
A lot of my sisters, might get mad when I say this. Even when I got out, I got into a marriage. I married my wife, and me and my wife talks about it. She was like, "You might need to write a book about this at one point, right?" But I told her at some point I will. But it's like when men come home and they in relationship with their wives, we struggle emotionally. We struggle with a lot of baggage. But in prison, you didn't see who I was. You didn't really see who I was. I gave you that version of what I wanted you to be, what you wanted me to be while I was in prison. I come home, I struggle. So I always even tell the sisters who are like prison wives, you have these organizations and these groups where they call prison wives, and some of them feel like they have mastered the skill of what a prison wife looks like. But a prison wife, man, it's a lot that you need to have a conversation with your husband. If your husband is a man that has been sitting in prison for 10 years and have not done anything with his personal development, that man may not be the best man for you when he comes home from prison.
uh-oh.
So
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. I don't want nobody attacking me.
Uh-oh. Let's just say, she said, it's still hard for me to handle other people's emotions.
Mhm.
It's not something I had to deal with for so long. My daughter was 2 when I got locked up. She's 6 now. So when she gets whiny over small things, it's hard for me to know how to handle.
Mhm.
I'm not used to babying people.
That's that emotion. That's going back to that emotional regulation. I don't know how to connect like that because as Jessica said, she had to learn how to suck it up. So now, as a mother, she has to take care of that, and emotionally, she struggles with that, understanding that piece. And it's okay. It's not. That's why I tell people who are formerly incarcerated, show self-compassion to yourself. Because what we had to survive, we have to give some compassion to ourselves, that we're not going to be the perfect husband. We're not going to be the perfect partner, wife. We're not going to be the perfect parent because of what we went through to get where we are. So self-compassion is something that our society, going back again to the question about religion and religious institutions, they have to understand what self-compassion looks like. And some of them, again, they have their own stigma and bias when it comes to us as well. That's why, again, they don't want to appoint some of us in certain positions because, again, they have a stigma. Oh, they ain't really changed. We need to see them for the next 5 years before they do what they need to do. But 5 years, we still walking around doing what we need to do, and you got people right there with that lived experience.
I don't see now. Hey, I'm not saying it's not so, but I don't see them having one of us on their board. You know what I'm saying? I can't get my mind to think that they would even see us like that.
Yeah.
Even though they say it sometimes, Lester. Oh, we so glad God got you out. We see you good, doing good things, but still in the back of their head.
Yeah,
Wait
it's
a minute.
there.
It's there.
And that's why we say again that, you know, we have to address these unconscious bias. So we can't ask a company, for instance, like I did a post on my thing about companies hiring people with felony convictions. HR has these policies where they don't hire a person with a felony convictions. So we can't, at a church or any religious institution, can't say, hey, you should give this person a job, but then on your board you're talking about prison outreach and you don't want to have nobody on your board that is formerly incarcerated.
Come on now.
You know,
Yeah.
those are things that we got to address as a community. You know what I'm saying? We know that, you and I know that one of the most powerful gifts that you discovered about yourself when you was in prison, you found your voice through your healing, right? And then you found your purpose. And and that's what we did, you know. And I have to add, this is like what my second book I wrote called The 5 Stages of Growth. In this book called The 5 Stages of Growth, I say how I transform my life while serving life. And in this book, I speak about the power of healing from past pain before I can have my voice that God has given me, just as He's given me my unique fingerprint. He has also given you a unique voice that is only for you, right? But you only find that through healing. So you and I went through whatever we went through, if it led to our incarceration, we did our time. And in that, God gave you something that has given you a level of authority to activate, and that's your purpose.
Right.
That is uniquely yours.
Right.
Like no one else have that. They have an experience similar, but they don't have your calling, right? Like, because you healed, and you, through that healing, God has given you a lesson, and you found that authentic voice that God put in you at birth. He gave you an authentic voice at birth. He gave you a gift at birth, even though we got lost in it, we've discovered it. And once you heal, find that authentic voice, now you got your purpose. Now you can activate and galvanize, because now you're speaking to the younger version of you. Like they said, that when you think about who's your audience of people you speak to, it is the younger version of you. That's who you speak to. You speak to the younger version, that 16-year-old kid that I'm talking about. Anything I do is about how do I empower a 16-year-old Lester? Because when I empower that 16-year-old Lester, I can prevent the 19-year-old Lester to commit murder or sell drugs. So you understand? That's the power of our ministry. Through our healing, remember, like some people say, how do I know my purpose? Or who do I speak? Who's my audience? Who's my tribe? Your tribe is you, your younger version of you. Because you and I rebound and endured something that the average person couldn't endure.
Most definitely. Most definitely. This is some good stuff. This is good. I'm talking about, I've been acting like I've been knowing you for the longest, you know. Just you
That's
know,
yeah,
what
that's
is
a
that
powerful
relationship we
connection.
got? Yeah.
What it
Yeah.
is.
So I really enjoying it. So I'm seeing you got the 5 stages of incarceration, and then the 5 stages of growth. That's your second book that you got, right?
Yeah, my third book is called The 5 Keys to Reentry, a handbook for life after incarceration.
Let me see. 5 keys to reentry.
Yeah.
Okay, the 5
This
keys.
is right here. This is the one I share with you, is this really about helping people when they get out of prison create realistic goals after. Once you come home in that 30 days, in prison, you got all these unimaginary dreams and aspirations. You ain't even been in the world in 20 years, right? So helping people identify, reestablishing their value system. What is the value of who you are? What is your moral compass after incarceration? Because your moral compass that you had in prison may have been warped.
Yeah, sure.
So figuring out what your moral compass is, like sitting down, assessing your value system again after release from prison. What are the things you value? And once the thing you value, you create the behavior. Now, what are the behaviors I need to create to uphold this particular thing, right? All the things. What are the goals? My next 60 day goal, 90-day goal, 180, setting small increments. What is my emotional intelligence IQ? Where do I stand with my emotional IQ? Where am I at with this? What does it feel like to walk in nature by myself? What does it feel like to be in a room by myself? Can I sit by myself? Could I go walking by myself? Could I go hiking by myself? Because remember, in prison, everything you did, you had to do it with somebody.
Yeah.
than you did in prison. So
Mm-hmm.
some of us, we come home, we're afraid to be alone. So in that time, like, go walk by yourself. Go discover yourself after you got out of prison. Go. You can't go on a vacation. Go find a park and just go sit at the park by yourself and just watch people.
Wow.
Go breathe.
Man, we ain't finished with you. I promise you, we ain't finished with you.
We
Jesse,
got
he said, Melissa, where did you find this guy? And see, let me tell y'all, I don't just scroll through posts, okay? I stop and I read them, okay? And if it's something that I don't like, then I scroll. But I
yeah,
stopped and I listened, Jess. I stopped and I listened and I said, wait a minute, this man is saying something.
yeah.
This man
Appreciate
is
it.
really saying
Appreciate it.
something. So I appreciate you
Mm.
and the work that you are doing because I know it's more. So we're
Yeah,
gonna get them to Georgia. We
yeah.
get them to Georgia and we're gonna make sure.
Ain't able to drive, sis.
Huh?
Ain't able to drive.
You know, so look at there, look at there. Ain't too far from us. We got him. We got him. He in South Carolina. We got him. All right. So we gonna make sure because I can just imagine a live version of you.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, I
I
can
appreciate
imagine.
it.
So, but thank you for agreeing, and I know it's gonna be a part two. Okay,
That's
it's,
fine. That's
it's
fine.
definitely
That's
gonna be a
fine.
part two. But he has 3 books, the 5 stages of incarceration. He may got more. I just don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like right now, I'm working on my next one, man.
Okay,
It's a workbook for young people. I call it the Power of Choice. This will be my first book that I'm working. Going back again, I'm writing a book to my 16-year-old self.
right.
What did I wish my 16-year-old self would know? So it's a workbook around the power of choices, and it's focused on the era of one's thinking, from instant gratification thinking, irrational thinking, impulsive thinking. These are eras in our thinking that led
Yeah,
to our incarceration.
yeah.
So I'm using my life story as a case study from 16 to 19, walking a young person in my steps and saying, hey, this is where I made a mistake. I was irrational. I didn't think critical. So this what made me go pick up this drug packet or whatever the case may have been. So yeah, I keep
Lester,
posting on that.
Lester, I am so grateful that you took the time to pay attention to what you were going through during and since prison. So many of us, me included, the first time just did the time and attempted to shake off the experience. But
Mhm.
you took the time to really experience and then share your experience with others.
Yeah,
So, too, amen. Yeah,
appreciate you, Jessica. Absolutely. That's just what God. That's going back into that purpose that all of us don't. Not saying that we have it. This is going back in me. It's in me. Like everything I feel, God has blessed me to be able to teach it. So
yeah.
what you go through, you have to teach it to other people as well. So just keep me posted. Let me know what else I can do for you.
Most definitely. You stay on. Everybody, thank you. Make sure you share whenever you get ready to look at it. You share this podcast because he is saying something. Okay. And he's saying something. And I'm telling you, 1 out of 3 Americans have a felony conviction record, whether they've been in time or they have probation or whatever the case. So everybody is affected by incarceration.
Mhm.
They're affected. And I know that he said something that can help somebody else. So make sure you share it. Make sure you encourage other people to just take some time and
Mhm.
just listen to what he has to say. Okay. And I know you can follow him on Facebook. He's on LinkedIn, on
Mhm.
Instagram, and probably everywhere else.
Yeah,
Okay. You can find him.
fully.
Just put his name in. Okay. Just put his name in. That's what I did. All right, y'all. Till next week. Thank you. Thank you, Lester.
Appreciate you.